You. Stop right there. Darius stood still. He turned slowly. He saw no welcome in Officer Miller's eyes, only suspicion. Yes, sir? Can I help you? What are you doing out here so late? You look suspicious. Darius blinked. Suspicious? He was just walking home. He lived in this neighborhood. His family had lived there for years. I'm just walking home, sir. From a friend's house. I live on Elm Street. Officer Miller narrowed his eyes. He didn't believe Darius. Or he didn't care. Elm Street, huh? And what's your name, son? ID? Darius reached for his wallet slowly. He pulled out his student ID. It showed his face, his name, Darius Vance. My name is Darius Vance. Here's my ID. Officer Miller snatched the card. He looked at it, then at Darius, back at the card. A sneer twisted his lip. Darius Vance. Right. You fit the description of someone we're looking for. Theft in the area. Darius's blood ran cold. Theft? He hadn't stolen anything. Ever. This wasn't right. This was a mistake. Sir, I promise I haven't done anything wrong. I was with my friend. Ask him. Officer Miller ignored him. He pulled out handcuffs. The cold metal shone under the streetlight. Darius stared at them. Fear mixed with anger. Hands behind your back. Now. You're coming with me. Darius didn't move fast enough. Officer Miller grabbed his arm. Rough. Darius winced. He tried to pull back. Don't resist. You want more charges, kid? The cuffs clicked shut. Tight. Too tight. Darius felt a heavy weight. He'd never been handcuffed. Never been in trouble. Not like this. His backpack was pulled off. It fell to the ground. Officer Miller shoved him towards the patrol car. The back door opened. It was dark inside. Cold. Darius felt small. Lost. He slid into the back seat. The door slammed shut. It sealed him in. The car started moving. The streetlights blurred. Darius stared at his reflection. A frightened kid. Handcuffed. For nothing. Little did Officer Miller know. Little did he. Know the name Vance meant more than just a kid walking home. It was a name that carried great power. A name that would soon make Officer Miller deeply regret this unfair arrest. Have you ever felt that gut-wrenching moment? When you know something is terribly wrong, horribly unfair, and you are powerless to stop it. When you're judged not for who you are, but for wrong assumptions? That's where Darius Vance found himself. And the story of what happened next, you won't forget. The police station was loud. Telephones rang. Radios crackled. Officer Miller led Darius inside. The cuffs still bit into Darius's wrists. The bright fluorescent lights made everything feel cold and stark. Darius kept his head up. He tried to look brave, but inside, his stomach churned. Officer Miller brought Darius to a counter. A desk sergeant sat behind it. He was an older man. He looked tired, booking a new one. Suspicious person. Possible theft. Name's Darius Vance. No ID beyond a student card. The desk sergeant looked up. He took the student ID. He glanced at Darius. His eyes lingered on Darius's face. Then, he looked at Officer Miller. Vance, you say? That name sounds familiar. Officer Miller shrugged. He didn't care. He just wanted to process the arrest. Probably a common name. Just another kid out past curfew. Darius wanted to speak. To protest again, to say he wasn't a criminal. But his throat felt tight. He had learned quickly that his words didn't matter to Officer Miller. The desk sergeant typed Darius's name into a computer. He frowned. His fingers paused. He looked at the screen, then back at Darius. A different look now. A look of slight concern. Are you sure about this, Miller? No record. Clean as a whistle. This kid is... Officer Miller cut him off. He was annoyed. He was lurking. Late at night. Fit the description. That's enough for probable cause. Besides, he resisted arrest. Darius's eyes widened. Resisted arrest? He had barely moved. This was a lie. A clear, flat-out lie. But who would believe him? I didn't resist. I just tried to pull my arm back a little when you grabbed me. It hurt. Officer Miller glared. See? Argumentative. Trying to make excuses. The desk sergeant sighed. He knew how Miller worked. Miller was known for being aggressive, for making quick judgments. Often, those judgments fell on certain types of people who looked like Darius. All right, Miller, let's just get the paperwork done. Call his parents. Standard procedure. Officer Miller pulled out a form. He started writing, fast. He wrote things about Darius being uncooperative, about resisting. Darius watched the words flow onto the paper. Each stroke of the pen felt like a blow, building a false case against him. Darius remembered what his dad always said. Always be polite, always be respectful, but know your rights. And if something feels truly wrong, speak up, but calmly. He had tried to be polite. Now it felt like it hadn't mattered. He wondered if his dad would be mad. Not at him, but at the situation. His dad didn't tolerate injustice, not from anyone. Darius felt a flicker of hope. His dad was powerful. His dad would make this right. He had to. But first, his dad needed to know, and the thought of calling his parents, of them seeing him like this, brought a fresh wave of shame, even though he'd done nothing wrong. He heard Officer Miller giving the desk sergeant the phone number. His home number, the one his dad always answered. The desk sergeant nodded. He picked up the phone. Darius held his breath. This was it. The moment his world would shift again. For better or worse, he didn't know. But the call was made. The phone rang at the Vance house. One ring. Two. One. Then, a deep, calm voice answered. Good evening, Mr. Vance. This is Sergeant Davies from the local precinct. We have your son Darius here. My son? Darius? What seems to be the problem, Sergeant? Well, Officer Miller brought him in for suspicious behavior, possible involvement in a theft, and resisting arrest. Another, longer pause. The silence on the phone was heavy. It seemed to fill the booking area. Even Officer Miller looked up. A strange quiet had fallen. Suspicious behavior? Theft? Resisting arrest? Sergeant, my son does not engage in such activities. Where is he now? And what exactly are these alleged charges based on? The desk sergeant cleared his throat. He felt the shift in tone from Mr. Vance. It wasn't just a concerned parent. It was something more. He's in the booking area, Mr. Vance. Officer Miller said he was seen walking late and that he fit a description. A description. I see. Sergeant, I will be there in 20 minutes. Do not process any charges. Do not question my son further without my presence. And please inform Officer Miller that he will be explaining his probable cause to me directly. Is that understood? The desk sergeant straightened. He felt a shiver. The authority in Mr. Vance's voice was unmistakable. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Yes, Mr. Vance. Understood. 20 minutes. He hung up the phone. He looked at Officer Miller. His tired face now held a worried frown. Miller, Mr. Vance is coming down. He sounds very unhappy. He wants to speak with you. Directly, Officer Miller scoffed. He was full of himself. Unhappy parents are nothing new. They always think their kid is an angel. I've handled plenty of angry dads. Let him come. He'll see I'm just doing my job. But a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. The desk sergeant's warning had a different feel this time. The way Mr. Vance had spoken. It wasn't just anger. It was controlled power. A quiet threat. Darius watched all of this. He couldn't hear his dad's words clearly, but he saw the effect. The desk sergeant was worried. Officer Miller was trying to act tough, but even Miller looked a little less sure of himself. A small spark of hope ignited in Darius. His dad was coming. His dad would set things right. He always did. He just needed to hold on. Just a little longer. The wait began. It felt like an eternity. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Officer Miller finished his report. He felt a bit of unease. The desk sergeant kept looking at the door. Then the doors to the precinct opened. A tall, distinguished man walked in. He moved with quiet power. His suit was perfectly tailored. His eyes were sharp, intelligent. This was John Vance, Darius's father. John Vance scanned the room. His gaze landed on Darius. Darius, still handcuffed, met his father's eyes. Shame, relief, and fear washed over him. John Vance gave a small, reassuring nod, a silent promise that everything would be okay. John Vance then turned his attention to Officer Miller. His eyes, though calm, held an intense focus. Officer Miller suddenly felt very small. Officer Miller, I presume? That's right. And you're Mr. Vance. I'm just doing my job here. Your son was out late, acting suspicious. John Vance stepped closer. His voice remained quiet, but it seemed to fill the room. My son Darius is a minor. He was walking home from a friend's house, in his own neighborhood. What exactly, officer, constitutes suspicious behavior in your professional opinion? Officer Miller shifted his weight. He felt less sure now. The man in front of him wasn't just an angry parent. There was something else. He was just loitering. And he matched a description for a petty theft. Dark clothing, young male. John Vance's eyes hardened. Dark clothing? Young male? Officer, that describes half the population of this town. Do you have anything more specific? A witness description? Evidence of a crime committed by my son? Officer Miller stammered. He resisted arrest. When I tried to cuff him, he pulled away. Darius, is this true? No, Dad. He grabbed my arm really hard. It hurt. I didn't try to get away. John Vance turned back to Miller. His face was a mask of calm anger. So, a natural human reaction to pain is now resisting arrest, officer, without any actual threat or attempt to flee? That is a serious accusation, and without specific probable cause for the initial stop, any subsequent resistance is questionable, legally speaking. Officer Miller felt heat rising in his cheeks. He was losing control of the situation. He tried to sound firm. Look, Mr. Vance, I don't need a lecture. I made an arrest. He's a suspect. We have procedures. Indeed, you do. And I assure you, I am intimately familiar with procedures, federal procedures in particular, and I believe we are rapidly approaching a violation of several. The desk sergeant, who had been listening intently, gasped softly. Federal procedures? This was not good. He nudged Officer Miller. Officer Miller, perhaps we should calm down. We can discuss this in the back. But John Vance wasn't finished. He took another step towards Miller, his eyes never leaving the officer's. The quiet authority in his voice was chilling. It cut through the noisy station. No, Sergeant. There's nothing to discuss in the back. Officer Miller seems quite determined to process my son on baseless charges. Charges based purely on a vague description and what appears to be racial profiling. Officer Miller's face went pale. Racial profiling. That was a career-ending word. He opened his mouth to protest. Before you make any further mistakes, Officer Miller, allow me to introduce myself properly. I am John Vance, and I am the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. The words hung in the air. Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. The entire booking area fell silent. The ringing phones seemed to stop. The crackling radios went quiet. Every eye in the room turned to John Vance. Officer Miller's jaw dropped. His face, already pale, now turned an ashen white. He looked like he had seen a ghost. His bravado vanished. All his bluster evaporated. He stumbled back a step. The desk sergeant clutched the counter. His eyes darted between John Vance, Officer Miller, and Darius. He had a sudden, terrible understanding. This wasn't just a powerful man. This was times the times powerful man. John Vance watched Officer Miller's reaction. His expression remained calm, but his eyes were like steel. I trust that information clarifies my level of familiarity with procedures. Now, Officer Miller, you have two options. You can immediately release my son, uncuffed, with a full apology for this egregious error. Or we can proceed with your arrest. and I will personally ensure that every single aspect of your conduct tonight and your career to date is subjected to the most intense federal review possible." Officer Miller was shaking. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. His mind raced. Federal review. That meant his job, his pension, everything, gone. For arresting a kid who happened to be the son of the CIA director because he looked suspicious. "Sir, Mr. Vance, I didn't know. I was just—" "You didn't know?" Ignorance of a person's identity is no excuse for a lapse in judgment, officer, especially when that judgment is based on vague descriptions and what appears to be blatant racial bias. Are you suggesting that if you had known who my son was, you would not have arrested him? Is that how you dispense justice in this precinct, based on social status? Officer Miller had no answer. He was trapped. His face was a mask of pure terror. John Vance turned to the desk sergeant. "Sergeant, uncuff my son, now, and I want those handcuffs checked. If they've left any marks, Officer Miller will be held accountable." The desk sergeant didn't hesitate. He rushed around the counter. He took a key from his belt. His hands trembled slightly as he unlocked Darius's cuffs. The metal clicked open. Darius rubbed his wrists. They were red, raw. Darius looked at his dad. A wave of relief washed over him. His dad had come. His dad had handled it, just like he always did. But this was bigger. Much bigger. John Vance looked at his son's red wrists. His calm facade cracked just a little. A flash of pure fury crossed his face. It was quickly hidden, but Darius saw it, and so did the desk sergeant. And Officer Miller. Ensure an incident report is filed, detailing the condition of my son's wrists and detailing the exact basis for this arrest. I will require a copy by morning. He then looked at Officer Miller, who stood frozen, unable to move or speak. "And Officer Miller, I expect a personal, written apology to my son by the end of the day tomorrow. Deliver it to my residence. Understand?" Officer Miller just nodded. A pathetic, small nod. He couldn't even speak. He knew his career was over, not just reviewed, but over. The desk sergeant, grim-faced, looked like he agreed. The atmosphere in the booking area was thick with shock and dread. No one moved. No one dared. John Vance placed a hand on Darius's shoulder. It was a comforting, strong grip. Darius felt a sense of protection he hadn't felt since the cruiser first pulled up. The shame started to fade, replaced by a powerful surge of pride in his father. John Vance turned back to Officer Miller, who was still speechless. "This incident, officer, will not be swept under the rug. I do not tolerate injustice, especially when it targets a child based on appearance. You have abused your authority, and there will be consequences. Rest assured, this conversation is far from over." He didn't rant. His words were precise, like a surgeon's scalpel, and they cut deep. "Sir, please, I have a family, and my son has a right to walk home safely, to not be targeted, to not be falsely accused, to not be assaulted. You chose your actions. Now, you must face their outcome." John Vance then looked around the room, at the other officers, the booking clerks. They were all watching. Their faces showed a mix of awe and fear. He wanted them to understand. This wasn't just about his son. It was about principle. Let this be a lesson to everyone here. The badge is a symbol of trust, not a license for prejudice. Uphold the law fairly, or face the full force of it yourself. He then took Darius by the arm. A protective gesture. "Darius, let's go home. We have much to discuss." As they walked towards the exit, the silence was absolute. No one moved, no one spoke. The officers stared. Darius felt a mix of powerful emotions: relief, vengeance, and a deep, quiet respect for his father. They stepped out into the cool night air. The patrol car was still there. The memory of being pushed into it was fresh, but now it felt different. Not a cage, but a symbol of the power his father had just shattered. The night air felt fresh, clean. Darius took a deep breath. He looked up at his father. "Dad, thank you." John Vance squeezed his shoulder again. "You did nothing wrong, son. Remember that. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are, especially when their actions are born of ignorance or malice." He didn't smile. His face was still serious. He was already thinking ahead, beyond this moment, to what needed to happen next. "We'll get you checked out, and tomorrow we begin the process of making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. From times officer." Darius looked back at the station. The bright lights seemed to mock Officer Miller's crumpled figure inside. He imagined the officer's fear, his regret, and a sense of deep satisfaction settled over Darius. Justice, not just for him, but for every other kid who had been stopped for looking suspicious. This was a night Officer Miller would never forget, and neither would the police department. The Vance living room was warm and inviting. Soft lamplight filled the space. It was a stark contrast to the harsh lights of the police station. Darius sat on the couch. His mother, Martha Vance, was gently applying a soothing cream to his reddened wrists. Her face was a mix of worry and fierce anger. "My poor boy. Look at these marks. This is unacceptable, John. Completely unacceptable." John Vance stood by the fireplace. He watched his son. His expression was grim. "It is beyond unacceptable, Martha. It is an abuse of power, and it will not stand." Darius felt a new wave of emotions. The fear was gone, replaced by a feeling of deep gratitude for his parents, and a quiet strength. I didn't know what to do, Dad. He just kept saying I was suspicious. And then the cuffs. You did exactly what you should have, son. You remained calm. You tried to explain. That is the most important thing. You didn't give them a real reason. His reason was baseless and prejudiced. That officer saw a young black man, late at night, and made assumptions. It's sickening. Precisely. And that's why we must act. This isn't just about Darius. This is about every child who faces such prejudice. Darius looked at his father. He understood. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about something bigger. "What are you going to do, Dad?" John Vance leaned forward. His voice was calm, but held immense purpose. "First, we will ensure Officer Miller faces the full consequences of his actions. His superiors will be informed. The Internal Affairs Department will conduct a thorough investigation. And I will personally oversee it. This is not a request. It is an expectation. And then, what about the department? This kind of behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum, John." "You are right, Martha. This kind of behavior is often a symptom of a larger issue. We will use this incident as a lever, not just to remove one bad apple, but to demand systemic changes, training, oversight, accountability. I have resources, influence, and I will use every bit of it." Darius listened. He saw the fire in his father's eyes. This was the man who led one of the most powerful organizations in the world. And now, that power was focused on fighting an injustice that had touched his own family. It was awe-inspiring. No officer should feel they can operate outside the bounds of justice and integrity. And no young person should live in fear of the very people sworn to protect them. This will be a clear message, a very clear message. The determination in his father's voice was absolute. Darius knew Officer Miller's regret was just beginning, and the ripple effects of this night would spread far beyond that small police station. This was not merely justice. This was an overhaul. A complete turning of the tables, and Darius, the suspicious boy, was at its center. This was a battle for dignity, for equality, for the right to simply walk home. The next morning, Chief Davidson sat at his large desk. He looked pale and very stressed. The phone on his desk rang. It was a secure line. He answered it quickly. "Chief Davidson here."
"Chief, this is John Vance. We need to speak." Immediately, Chief Davidson swallowed hard. He knew this call was coming. He'd already had a very rough morning.
Sergeant Davies had reported the incident. Officer Miller had been put on immediate leave. Yes, Mr. Vance. Of course. My office. When would be convenient for you? I'm already on my way. Expect me in 10 minutes, and I suggest you have Officer Miller's full personnel file ready, along with any incident reports related to similar complaints. Chief Davidson's eyes widened. Similar complaints. Mr. Vance was not just angry about last night. He was digging deep. This was far worse than he'd imagined. Understood, Mr. Vance. They will be ready. He hung up the phone. He looked at his assistant, who was already rushing in with thick folders. The tension in the air was heavy. 10 minutes later, John Vance walked into the chief's office. He was dressed in a sharp suit. He carried himself with an air of quiet power. He did not offer a handshake. His face was serious. Chief Davidson, thank you for seeing me. Mr. Vance, please, have a seat. I am deeply, deeply sorry about what happened last night. I've already suspended Officer Miller. He's being investigated. John Vance sat down. He looked directly at Chief Davidson. Suspended is a start, Chief, but it is not enough. My son, a minor, was unlawfully detained, falsely accused, and physically harmed for simply walking home. Officer Miller's actions were not just an error. They were a clear pattern of behavior. I asked for his file. Chief Davidson pushed a thick folder across the table. It's all there, sir. Miller has had some prior complaints. Nothing this serious. But yes, a history of aggressive stops, lack of probable cause, accusations of racial bias. They were always dismissed or handled internally. John Vance picked up the folder. He opened it. His eyes quickly scanned the pages, the reports, the complaints, the internal resolutions that always favored the officer. His jaw tightened. Dismissed, handled internally, meaning swept under the rug. This suggests a systemic issue, Chief, not just one rogue officer. This department has allowed this pattern to continue. You have allowed it. Chief Davidson looked down at his desk. He knew it was true. He had tried to address it, but the police union was powerful. The old ways were hard to break. Mr. Vance, I assure you, I want to fix this. But is not an option, Chief. My son's experience is just one story. How many other young people have been subjected to Officer Miller's prejudices? How many have been too afraid to speak up? Or whose parents didn't have the influence to make a call? He closed the folder with a sharp snap. The sound echoed in the quiet office. The message was clear. This was no longer just about Officer Miller. This was about the entire department. And John Vance was just getting started. He had plans, big plans. And Chief Davidson could either join him or be crushed by the coming storm. The fight for true justice had only just begun. John Vance placed Officer Miller's file back on the desk. He leaned forward. His eyes bore into Chief Davidson. Chief, let me be clear. This is not about my personal revenge. This is about justice. For my son, yes, but also for every young person who might face this. I will not tolerate this, and neither will the institution I represent. Chief Davidson knew the weight of those words. The institution I represent. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise of immense pressure. Mr. Vance, what do you propose? I've suspended Miller. I'm opening an internal investigation. That's the bare minimum, Chief. Here's what will happen. Officer Miller will be terminated. Not suspended. Terminated. For gross misconduct and racial profiling. His actions are not a reflection of what a police officer should be. Chief Davidson flinched. Termination was a huge step. The union would fight it hard. Termination. That will be difficult. The union protects its members, Chief, sometimes even from themselves, but they cannot protect someone who has clearly violated the public trust. If you need help dealing with the union, I have legal teams. They are very good at finding leverage. Very good. Chief Davidson understood. Vance was offering to fight his battles for him or against him. Beyond Miller, this department needs a complete overhaul. I want to see new training programs focused on de-escalation, cultural sensitivity, and implicit bias. I want regular, independent audits of police stops and arrests, especially those involving minorities. And I want a transparent system for citizen complaints, one that actually results in accountability. Not just internal dismissals. Chief Davidson listened. Each demand was a massive undertaking. It meant changing years of ingrained practice. It meant going against powerful forces within his own department. Mr. Vance, these are sweeping changes. They will take time and resources. Standing up, his voice growing colder. Then find the time. Find the resources. Because if these changes are not implemented, and quickly, I will not only ensure Officer Miller is dismissed, but I will also initiate a federal investigation into your entire department. A full review of every arrest, every complaint, every promotion. The kind of investigation that leaves no stone unturned. And I assure you, Chief, the CIA has resources that can make even federal prosecutors look limited. The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. A federal investigation led by the director of the CIA. It meant endless scrutiny, public humiliation, and likely the dismantling of the entire department, and Chief Davidson's career along with it. Chief Davidson stood up too. His face was etched with fear and understanding. He saw the path laid out before him. Cooperation or destruction. I understand, Mr. Vance. I will begin work on this immediately. I will assemble a task force. Good. I expect weekly reports, direct to me, and I expect to see concrete progress. My son's experience will not be in vain. This will be a turning point for your department, Chief, one way or another. He turned to leave. He paused at the door. One more thing, Chief. That written apology from Officer Miller to my son? I expect it on my desk by 5 p.m. today. Not tomorrow, today. With that, John Vance walked out, leaving Chief Davidson alone in his office. Surrounded by files and the daunting task of cleaning up years of systemic problems, the tables had not just turned, they had been completely overturned. And a new era of accountability was about to begin for this small-town police force, all because a young man, Darius, had simply been walking home. Officer Miller sat opposite Chief Davidson. His face was blotchy, his eyes were red. He had just heard the news. Officer Miller, effective immediately. Your employment with the department is terminated. This decision is final. Miller stared at him. He couldn't believe it. His career, gone, just like that. Terminated? Chief, no! Please! One mistake! I have a family! It wasn't one mistake, Miller. Your file shows a pattern. And this time, you crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. You falsely arrested a minor. You physically harmed him. You showed clear bias. And you did it to the son of John Vance. The name hung heavy. John Vance. Miller flinched again. Mr. Vance also demands a written apology to his son. It must be delivered to his home by 5 o'clock this evening. A personal apology. Officer Miller looked defeated. An apology to the kid he had handcuffed. The humiliation burned. But he knew he had no choice. He stood up slowly. His shoulders slumped. His badge was already taken. His gun was gone. He was no longer an officer. Darius sat with his parents. The doorbell rang. John Vance answered it. A uniformed officer stood at the door. Not Officer Miller. Mr. Vance, this is from Officer Miller, as requested. John Vance took the envelope. He closed the door. He gave the envelope to Darius. It's just my name. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, formal. To Darius Vance, I am writing to formally apologize for my actions on the night of date. I acknowledge that my conduct was unprofessional and inappropriate. I deeply regret any distress or harm caused to you. I understand the severity of my errors and apologize for the misjudgment. Sincerely, Officer Mark Miller. Darius read it aloud. His mother frowned. His father's face was unreadable. Formally apologize. No real remorse. No understanding. It's an apology, Darius. Forced, yes, but it's recorded. It's an admission of wrongdoing. It's a start. For him, it is a very big moment. The end of his career. Darius nodded. He felt a strange mix of emotions. Justice had been served, but it didn't feel like a celebration. It felt heavy. The apology was cold, but it showed his father's power. It showed that even a powerful officer could be held accountable. Meanwhile, Chief Davidson gathered his senior staff. Their faces were grim. Effective immediately, we are implementing new policies. Mandatory bias training. New protocols for citizen complaints. Independent review boards for all use of force incidents. There will be zero tolerance for racial profiling. He looked around the room. The officers exchanged glances. This was a seismic shift. The old ways were ending. The chief was serious, and everyone knew why. Because John Vance had brought the full weight of his influence to bear. The force of a single, deeply wronged family. This was just the beginning of a true change. In breaking news, Officer Mark Miller, a longtime member of the local police force, has been terminated. This action follows an incident earlier this week where Miller unlawfully arrested 6-year-old Darius Vance for suspicious behavior. Sources confirm that the termination came after the intervention of Darius's father, John Vance, who is revealed to be the current director of the Central Intelligence Agency. The incident, now labeled a clear case of racial profiling, has sent shockwaves through the community and the police department. Darius watched the news report with his parents. His face was a mix of awe and a strange sort of quiet victory. He saw his own face on television. It felt surreal. This is going to be everywhere. Good. It needs to be. This isn't about shaming, Martha. It's about transparency. About accountability. So, everyone knows now about Officer Miller? Yes, son. And everyone knows why. His termination is public. His apology, though private, is now part of his permanent record. More importantly, the chief of police is now under immense pressure to make real changes. Weeks later, the police department was a hive of activity. A large sign read, "Implicit bias training, mandatory." Officers, including the desk sergeant, sat in a classroom. A new trainer, a calm, firm woman, led the session. Today, we're talking about unconscious bias, the assumptions we make without even realizing it. Assumptions that can lead to unfair stops, unfair arrests, like what happened to Darius Vance. She showed a video of Darius, briefly, as an example. The officers watched, some looking uncomfortable, some nodding. The desk sergeant listened carefully. He knew this training was long overdue. He remembered the look in John Vance's eyes, the quiet, deadly resolve. Chief Davidson sat at his desk. He was signing off on new policy documents. His face still looked tired, but also determined. He was making the changes, because he had to. He looked at a stack of weekly reports. Each one detailed progress on training, new community outreach programs, and changes to the citizen complaint system. He knew John Vance would be reading every single word. It took the director of the CIA to walk into my office and lay down the law, but sometimes that's what it takes to truly open your eyes. To confront the biases we've allowed to fester. Darius was making a sandwich. He still walked home from his friend's house sometimes, but now he felt different, not just safe, but powerful. Because his experience had caused real change. He heard his dad on the phone in the next room, still working, still pushing for change. "Yes, Chief, I saw the report. Good progress. But remember, the real test is in the streets, in the trust you build." Darius smiled. It wasn't just his battle anymore. It was a battle for everyone. And his father, the CIA director, was leading the charge. All because a kid looked suspicious. And that was a lesson no one in this town would soon forget. This was true justice. A lasting kind. Months had passed since that night. Darius sat with his parents at a community meeting. The room was packed. Local residents, young and old, filled every chair. Chief Davidson stood at the podium. He looked different, less stressed, more confident. We've made great strides. Our officers have completed over 300 hours of new training. Our citizen complaint system is now fully transparent, and we've seen a 40% drop in complaints regarding aggressive stops. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. Most of it was positive. John Vance listened, a subtle nod of approval on his face. He still got those weekly reports. He knew the numbers. A community elder stood up. Her voice was strong. "Chief, these numbers sound good. But what about trust? Can our young people walk home without fear now?" Chief Davidson looked directly at Darius. "That, ma'am, is the true measure. We are actively engaging with community leaders. We're building bridges. It won't happen overnight, but we are committed." Darius caught the chief's eye. He remembered the chief's fear that day. Now, he saw a man trying to do right. It was a change he had helped cause. A few weeks later, Darius was again walking home from his friend's house. This time, it was daylight. The sun was warm. He wasn't humming. He was listening to music through headphones. A patrol car drove past him. Slowly, the officer inside glanced at him. Darius didn't flinch. He just offered a small, polite nod. The officer nodded back. A normal, human exchange. No suspicion, no fear. Darius realized something had shifted inside him, too. He wasn't entirely trusting yet. The memory of the handcuffs still lingered, but the knot of dread was gone, replaced by a cautious hope. He could walk home. He belonged here. John Vance sat at his desk. He reviewed the latest report from Chief Davidson. It detailed a new mentorship program, officers volunteering their time to connect with local youth. He smiled faintly. It wasn't a victory dance. It was a deep, quiet satisfaction. He had used his power, not for personal gain, but to right a wrong, to ensure that an injustice against his son led to meaningful change for an entire community. It always starts with one act, one voice, one stand. He closed the file. The work was never truly done. But the foundation was laid. A seed of justice had been planted in the fertile ground of outrage, and it was growing, strong and true. This was the long game of justice, a game he was very good at playing. And winning. Darius sat at his desk. He was writing an essay for school. The topic, "An event that changed my perspective." He looked at the blank page. His pen hovered. He thought back to that night, the harsh lights, the cold handcuffs, the fear. But then, his father's calm, powerful voice, the sudden silence in the station, the look on Officer Miller's face. "It started as the worst night of my life. An injustice so clear, so unfair, it felt like the world had tilted. I was just a kid walking home. But in one officer's eyes, I was suspicious." He began to write. He wrote about the anger, the feeling of powerlessness. Then, he wrote about his dad's arrival. Not with anger, but with precision, with cold, hard facts, and the undeniable weight of his position. "My dad didn't just get me out of trouble. He dismantled the trouble. He showed me that power, when used for good, can shatter injustice. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure no one else had to feel that same fear." He wrote about the weeks that followed. The news reports, the mandatory training, the community meetings. He even mentioned the chief of police, a man who had seemed stuck, now driving real change. Officer Miller sat alone at a table. He was wearing casual clothes, not a uniform. He looked older, tired. He worked a simple job now, far from the authority he once held. He saw a news report on the television above the counter. It was about the local police department's new community outreach program. He watched, a hollow look in his eyes. He knew he had thrown it all away. Darius finished a paragraph. He paused. This experience hadn't just changed the police department. It had changed him. He was no longer just a kid. He was a symbol, a living testament to what happens when you stand up. When you refuse to let injustice define you. I learned that night that justice isn't always quick. It's often a long, hard fight, but it's a fight worth having. And sometimes, It takes someone with great power to make the world listen, to force those who refuse to see, to finally open their eyes. He looked out his window, the same street where it had all happened. Now, it looked different. Safer, not just for him, but for everyone. The fear was gone, replaced by a new sense of possibility, and a quiet determination to carry that message forward. This story, the story of Darius Vance and the night his father, the CIA director, entered, became a legend in the town. A constant reminder that even in the quietest suburbs, the pursuit of justice can ignite a firestorm of change. And that sometimes, the most powerful people are the ones who use their influence, not for themselves, but for the voiceless, for the kids who just want to walk home. Darius closed his essay. His experience had changed him. He now understood that real power wasn't about status, but about using one's influence to fight injustice. His father's actions ensured that the fear he felt that night would be replaced by hope for others. It was a powerful lesson, and a story that would forever remind their town that true change begins when someone dares to stand up. This story is a powerful reminder. It shows how one moment of injustice can spark a firestorm of change. Darius Vance, a seemingly ordinary teen, became the unexpected catalyst. His father, the CIA director, used his immense influence not for revenge, but for systemic justice. It led to an officer's termination, vital police reforms, and a town that learned to question prejudice. But real change doesn't end there. It needs all of us. Have you ever faced an unfair judgment? Or seen someone stand up for what's right? Share your story in the comments below. Let us know what justice means to you. If this story of courage and accountability resonated with you, give this video a like, subscribe for more true stories of triumph over adversity, and share it with someone who needs to hear that power can and should be used for good. Because every voice, every action, no matter how small, can contribute to a world where everyone can walk home in peace.